Today I want to discuss hydroponic gardening as an investment. We're going to look at the potential of my system. It's unusual and unique, but there's nothing new about vertical gardening. It's catching on like Bieber fever. The kid has 632 million views, and you thought you were popular. Ha! The return on investment of this hydroponic system will make you very popular too. You might become known as the pepper person, but I don't know about pepper fever. Maybe you can make $500,000 over the next 10 years with an investment of just $606, which is returned to you in crops over 3 months with a profit of over $10,000 if you're lucky. I don't sell the units, so please don't try to order them from me. I have designed the system, and I did not copyright it or patent it. It's free, and I hope you build one and make a killing, because that would thrill me more than anything. If I want to make money, I'll build a system and plow all the profits back in to buy more units. I don't wish to make money by building these and selling them to you at sky-high prices. I figured it will cost $606 to build one, and that's based on pricing the parts at Lowe's. I did not pay myself to cut the parts and assemble them, so if you don't do it yourself, that's extra. This is a do-it-yourself estimate of cost, and that's all it is. I take no responsibility of you cutting your finger on the saw or crop failure because of a tornado. I'm going to show you how to look at this as an investment and then teach you the basics of investing if you're not too familiar with them. I will help you calculate yield based on a very simple formula, and then you can try building one. Maybe you will have fun growing bell peppers, and maybe you'll make money at it. Maybe you will find that peppers are a kind of currency and you can become powerful in your neighborhood. When you grow what some people call sweet peppers, and they taste good in meat dishes and on pizza, you can't help becoming the most popular pepper picker the pizza place ever popularized. Money may not be safe in the bank, and if you're looking for a banking system that grows your money fast and doesn't give others direct access to your account without due process of law, then maybe this is the haven you've been looking for. When you put your money into this bank, there is no inflation because the Federal Reserve can't devalue your life savings by counterfeiting money with their QE1, QE2, QE3, QE4, and QE5 baloney. Robbing old people of their savings is immoral, and someone should end that corrupt system. So what can you do? You can grow bell peppers and tell Bernanke to eat cat food. Why do I look at this as an investment? Because there is growth. I like growth. Growth, for lack of a better word, is good. I never saw anything grow valuable faster than a seed. One kernel of corn can grow to 584 in just 84 days. That's average for 1 ear, but the average corn plant has 3 ears, and that's just the largest ear. If you put $1 in the bank and came back in less than 3 months and found $584, what would you do? You'd keep quiet about it. Obviously the bank made an error. Well, corn is no error, it's reality. Nothing grows as fast as crops, and if Bernie Madoff had figured this out, he might not be in jail. Everyone thought he was a genius because he got investors 8% annually. The truth was, he couldn't even do that, and now he's in prison for swindling people. Corn demonstrates an annual return of 260 million% if you plant one kernel and then replant all kernels which grow from that one. You finish up the year with 260 million kernels of corn. How do you like that? I worked in investments for 25 years, and so I have the investor's perspective on things. My hydroponic design is not like any that I've ever seen. Most systems are two-dimensional, and the designers don't seem to think in 3 dimensions. When you look at the ground, you see only 2 dimensions. You see left and right. You have the area in front of you and the area behind you. That's all most gardeners see. They don't think up and down, vertical. You not only have the x-axis and the y-axis, but the z-axis. If you're paying rent by the square foot, that's 2 dimensions. Use the 3rd dimension and get a multiple of the space that you rented. My hydroponic system is based on the use of the 3rd dimension in order to extract the benefits that exist there. Let's look at the formula for calculating return on investment. ROI, as it is called, equals profit divided by investment. And if it's 1 year, you don't have to adjust for time. If you do it in half a year, you have to double it to get the annual return. If it takes a quarter of a year, then you have to quadruple it because you can do 4 such investments in a single year. My system is ideal for indoors, growing with lights which give plants just what they need, and the water tank is a closed system. Very little water seeps into the ground. It's a very efficient system, and I think the entire world will have to switch to this because it makes sense. Save 90% of the cost of produce by eliminating the transportation of crops to the stores by growing them in the building next to the grocery store. Or grow them in a shopping center and sell them to the foot traffic, and you have eliminated 90% of the cost. People will love you for it. You can double your price, and who will complain? You're still 80% below market. Now let's do an example using the estimated costs of my unit. I have figured that it will take about $606 to make this, but if you already have some of the parts and choose to use them, then maybe you can save a few dollars and my estimate will be high, and that's okay. Whenever you figure costs, you want to figure high, very high, and low when you figure income. When you do this, your income is always higher than expected, and your costs always lower. It's a good rule to adapt. Let's see what happens to our bell peppers investment in the first 3 months. You build a unit, let's say, and you plant peppers and fill up a single unit, which holds 828 plants. The unit is 12 feet long and 1 foot wide almost. Less than 12 square feet, and you put out $606 to build it, let's say. The average pepper plant puts out 14 peppers, I've read, so let's use that to see what the potential is. Don't look for guarantees because this is just potential that we're looking for. This is the highest it could be, barring any great hormone which causes plants to grow twice as fast and put out twice as many peppers. You also can't manipulate the life cycles to fool the plant into thinking that a day is only 18 hours to make it grow faster. We're going to use average growing times and average production results based on a community out there which is well established, and they report what they experienced when they grew peppers. This unit grows 828 plants, and if each plant gives you 14 peppers, you'd have over 11,000 peppers in 3 months. They are worth about $1 each, I'd say. Your investment is $606, and that goes on the bottom as the denominator. The numerator is your profit, and that goes on top. Profit is the value of your crop minus the cost to produce it, and in the first year, you have some costs. So subtract $606 from 11,592 and you get 10,986, and your unit is paid for. Next year, you don't have to subtract the cost of making the hydroponic unit. That increases the profit a little bit, but you can also make one of these units every 3 months so you have a nice buildup of production capacity and your revenue grows geometrically. Now do the math. The unit produced 1,813% in just 3 months. That's a quarter of a year, so multiply by 4 to get the annual yield of this unit, and that comes out to 7,251%. Let's compare that with Bernie Madoff. His investors got 8%, and he went to jail for it. This figure of 7,251% in the first year does not remain constant. In the second year, you don't have a $606 cost. That increases your return on investment. You also have to consider that all your capital was returned in the first 3 months, and you have to consider that when you look at income and return on investment. If you make an investment of $606 and get it all back in 3 months, what is the term of the investment? It's always going to be 3 months, isn't it? Did you have any money out for more than these 3 months? If you had this money stashed under your pillow and you took it out of its hiding place and invested it for 3 months and then put it back, how long was it risked? Only 3 months. 3 months is the only number I can see. So if you make $40,000 net in the first year by having 4 planting seasons, that $40,000 is divided by just $606, and your term of investment was just 3 months, even though you waited an entire year to receive the $40,000. Next year, you add another $40,000 income, and that income also came from the original $606 investment, and so your return on investment continues to rise. It grows to 300,000% in 10 years, all because you had money out for 3 months. Over that 10 years, you have taken over $460,000 in profits from this single unit, perhaps. What you have to realize is that no matter how much you take out, your original investment was only $606. The term will never be more than the original 3 months that it took to get all your capital back. Okay, so you smell money and you want to know if there's any way to squeeze more money out of this idea? Yes, there is. You might consider putting all your profits back in and build more units so you can grow at the fastest rate. Just take out what you need to live and keep growing. This retirement program makes sense, and you need something to replace Social Security dreams. Maybe Social Security will be there to give you part of the money back that you paid in all those years, but I have better ideas. When you trust government, you lose every time. If they hold your money, you won't see it again. If they create a trust fund for your retirement, they'll draw it out and squander it on something like a war. We don't need wars. We need bell peppers and the hydroponic units to grow them in. We need control of our retirement fund, and this unit is it. But how many of you can afford to invest $606 to build one? How many can construct one that works? How many of you understand pH, plant nutrition, absorption rates relative to pH of the solution, light wavelength for maximum growth? Do you think it's easy? You might have to read a book a day like me. Get your text-to-speech software online. It's free and it makes reading much easier. To be a farmer, you have to know a few things, and there are thousands of experts out there who are telling us how to do it. It's not a secret. It just takes effort. Reading is hard without the automatic reader. Try one and see if you don't enjoy reading with one. You can watch videos, but most videos are very boring. They are as poorly done as the units they are demonstrating.
Great. Thank you, Darby. And thank you, everyone on the line this afternoon for your time. We're really happy to have so many people taking time from their busy schedules to join the webinar this afternoon. And it looks like we have some great representation from across the province, which is wonderful. So this is the first of 3 Economic Development Essentials webinars that the Economic Development Division of the Ministry of Jobs, Tourism and Skills Training is hosting over the next month or so. And just to give you a little bit of context, I can't do it. Just to give you a little bit of context where this webinar series originated, about a year ago, the division, our Economic Development Division, was hearing directly from communities that training on economic development concepts would be beneficial for local leaders. We heard that some focused information about the role of local leaders in economic development processes and activities would be beneficial for communities across the province. And so we responded to that need directly and offered 15 Economic Development Essentials workshops earlier in 2013. We had over 400 attendees at those workshops and a really positive response to the sessions. Based on the feedback that we received at the workshops and also from folks who weren't able to attend one of the workshops, we're following up with these webinars. We're doing 3 webinars in total, and the webinars are focused on the topics that were identified as being of greatest interest to both workshop attendees and those that weren't able to attend. So in addition to today's workshop on investment readiness, we're holding one on September 26th on business retention and expansion, and one on October 10th around strategic planning. So just to give a brief rundown on the structure of today's webinar, so I'm going to start the session off with a brief overview of investment readiness as a concept, the role of economic development practitioners such as yourselves, or many of you on the line, and some of the supports that are available to assist you with your work in this area. From there, Katie Ralph is going to walk us through a relatively new tool that has been launched by the Ministry of Jobs, Tourism and Skills Training, the Business Attraction Toolkit for BC Communities. Katie's going to provide an overview of the toolkit and then look at some of its contents that can be used by you and your community to build your investment readiness. And then from there, we'll turn it over to Jaylene Arnold, and Jaylene is going to walk us through a case study example from the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality about their investment readiness, investment attraction approach taken related to the Horn River Light Industrial Park. So in terms of what is investment readiness, The terms investment readiness, business friendliness are often used interchangeably, but for the purpose of this webinar today, we're using the definition that's on the screen here, a community or region's ability to explore, attract, and establish new business. Just as any entrepreneur would need to have completed certain steps to be ready and able to bring investment in to support their new business, communities also need to be prepared to bring investment to their area. Ensuring that the groundwork is in place increases the chances of successfully attracting investment to a community or a region. In terms of the role of economic development practitioners such as yourselves, that role is pretty critical in building your community's investment readiness. And on the slide, you'll see an outline of some of the components of that role. So whether that's it includes assessing your community's existing investment readiness to identify where there might be gaps and how those gaps may be addressed, developing strategies to build investment readiness with clear objectives and goals, understanding investment opportunities in your region and the types of investment that could be suitable for those opportunities, having information about investment opportunities available and accessible to potential investors, being able to respond to investment inquiries and site visits, and working to learn from and improve on each experience in order to achieve continuous improvement in those responses. The role of economic development practitioners may also include developing regional partnerships to grow your investment potential, and also identifying tools and supports to assist in advancing investment readiness. And when it comes to being investment ready and attracting investment to your community, communities and regions are competing for the attention of sophisticated investors. These investors make decisions based on their unique business needs, available infrastructure support, and the flexibility and ease of local planning and development process. With the right tools and information available, though, to meet the demands of these sophisticated investors, communities can be well positioned and ready to attract investment opportunities. So here's just a short list of questions that will assist you as economic development practitioners to focus your investment readiness activities. So what's your community or your region's competitive edge? What types of business or investment are you targeting? Do you have the right information available, and is that information accessible? Have you reflected on your past experiences in dealing with potential investors? Do you know what's working and what's not? And do you have an investment readiness or an investment attraction strategy in place? A little bit of detail on investment attraction strategies. An investment attraction strategy is a really great way to focus your energy and activity. These plans should evolve over time, first targeting areas that need to be built to ensure investment readiness, and then focusing on targeted investment attraction. Often these strategies fit within a community's broader economic development plan. And these plans are strategic and ensure that a community and region is able to attract business and investment using clear goals and objectives and setting out carefully developed strategies and tactics. If you do a quick web search around investment readiness strategy or investment attraction strategy, there are some really excellent examples that you can look at, both from areas in BC and from other jurisdictions, and I encourage you to look at some of those examples.
Sorry, Amy, I think we're just getting just a little feedback from the crowd, so I'm just going to put it over to the lecture mode here just to ensure that it's in place.
The conference is in lecture mode.
Great, and I'll just put the slide here.
Yeah. In terms of supporting investment readiness, online information is a great place to focus your early investment readiness work. Almost all preliminary research about investment opportunities is done using the internet, so a comprehensive economic development website is a good place to start. There's certainly a range of approaches and levels of sophistication on what these websites may look like, from very basic web presences within a municipal website, which might include some basic demographic information, to those with very detailed GIS mapping capabilities, or the ability for users to customize content and information based on identified areas of interest and focus. So, there really is quite a spectrum there, but it's just really key for there to be some economic development online presence for your area. A land inventory, our land use planning process are important elements of being investment ready. Potential investors will definitely have questions related to availability and size of sites that are available, land use designation, zoning and servicing, sale and leasing potential, or land ownership. So having this information available and online will ensure that these questions can be answered sufficiently. Community profile and including site selection standards ensures that potential investors are able to access information most relevant to them in making location decisions, and also allows investors to make an apples-to-apples comparison between potential sites. So it really is advantageous on both sides for the communities and for the potential investors. Next slide, please. For communities that don't have their own community profile, or to complement those that exist by providing an additional avenue for investors to discover information about your community, the province of BC has community profiles from across the province, and these can be found on the investment landing page at www.britishcolumbia.ca. If you haven't already, I do encourage you to review your community's information on the site. If there are questions or updates, we'd be happy to receive them. And if you are interested in the community profiles that are online on the provincial site, in the handout section of the live meeting environment, there is a one-pager information source there with contact information of exactly who to get in touch with if you've got questions or if there's information that you'd like to update. Another way that the province is supporting investment readiness and investment attraction is through the Opportunities BC database. This is an online database linking investors with business opportunities in your region. The Opportunities BC database was launched about a year ago and is really proving to be a worthwhile and beneficial resource for both communities and investors. Recent web analytics are showing that the site gets over 10,000 visitors a month, and we're beginning to hear about community visits arising specifically from opportunities that were viewed on the Opportunities BC website. Over the last several months, we've worked really hard to address some of the technical challenges that were encountered in the early days of the tool. So if you haven't been to the site recently, please go to the website, which is on the slide here, and have a look around and see what's on there. And if you have been using the tool, we'd really like to hear your feedback, both on using the tool. We're planning a survey of users in the coming week or so, and so we'll be looking for feedback through that. And we've also got an Opportunities BC inbox, which you can send an email to. We're always also looking for success stories coming out of Opportunities BC, so please feel free to share those if you have one. I wanted to provide a couple other resources to draw your attention to. The Rural BC website, the web link is listed there in yellow, which isn't the most visible color on a white background, so apologies for that. The Rural BC website has a number of resources available to communities, including a listing of funding sources, events, and webinars that can help you find information you need for your investment readiness planning. The Business Attraction Toolkit is another great resource, and Katie will be walking us through a detailed look at the toolkit. In addition to provincial resources, there's a program called Invest Canada Community Initiative, which is sponsored through the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development Canada. And this is a program that provides funding opportunities for Canadian communities in attracting foreign investment and creating jobs. If you haven't looked at any information about this program, please do through the Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development Canada website, because it really is a great opportunity to support your investment readiness activities.
Amy, just one thing I'd like to note, the actual Rural BC URL there, it's actually www.ruralbc.gov.bc.ca. So ruralbc.gov.bc.ca, and when I do archive these materials, I'll be sure to make that change. So please note that.
Okay. There are also regional trusts, regional economic development trusts that support investment readiness initiatives. So the Southern Interior Development Initiative Trust, Northern Development Initiative Trust, and Island Coastal Economic Trust. And there are specific programs that may be able to support you in your investment readiness activities through those regional trusts. And lastly, in terms of support, there's also staff support through jobs, tourism, and skills training to assist communities in their investment readiness, investment traction activities. So working as a network, both internationally through our trade and investment representatives around the world and domestically through our economic development division's regional representatives who cover off each region in the province. Our staff is available to support you in your community to advance your economic development priorities. We also have subject matter experts in other areas of the ministry that can assist with labor market analysis, land development issues, and tourism product development. And then our JPST team is complemented and coordinated with colleagues across government and all other ministries. So please do feel free to get in touch if you're not sure who your regional representative is, or if you need assistance identifying your best point of contact. I've included my contact information on the following slide. So if you're not sure who to get in touch with, by all means, please contact me directly, and I'd be happy to help you out. So with that, just brief introduction to investment readiness and some of the key supports through the province. I'm going to turn it over to Katie. So just a brief bio of Katie before I turn the microphone over. Katie works in the Economic Development Division as well, and has been working in the division since 2012. She came over from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. Her previous work experience includes stakeholder relations, research and analysis, communications, and issue management. Over the past several months, Katie's focus has been on developing and co-leading the Business Attraction Toolkit for BC communities, leading 4 of the Economic Development Essentials for Local Leaders workshops, and undertaking policy work for the Resort Municipality Initiative. So with that, I'll turn it over to Katie for a discussion of the Business Attraction Toolkit.
Wonderful. Thank you, Amy, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you again for your time this afternoon. And we'll take a few minutes now to walk through the Business Attraction Toolkit. Get it out. Next one. Excellent. So the Business Attraction Toolkit is an online resource that provides tools and supports to help communities, local governments, and regions in their business attraction and investment readiness efforts. As Amy mentioned, the toolkit was recently launched in April of this year. It was developed in response to an identified need for additional tools and resources to support communities, so that we're not all starting from ground zero each time that we wish to advance an economic development initiative or work towards attracting a potential investor. The toolkit was developed and designed through close engagement with a number of communities and regional partners across the province. Through working with our stakeholders, we identified 5 key areas where we could provide information, tools, resources, and various other supports to assist communities in their investment attraction efforts. The toolkit has been well received so far. For example, in the last couple of months over the summer here, it's received almost 1,000 visits, and many of the online tools and resources have been downloaded, which is fantastic to see that they're being used. And we're always looking to improve the toolkit. So as we go through the presentation today, and as you hopefully have an opportunity to explore it at a later date, we'd love to hear from you as to what information is particularly helpful, if there are any gaps or anything missing, and your experience in using the toolkit in general. Each of the 5 sections on your screen here includes various downloadable templates, tools, questionnaires, checklists, and general information to support you along the way. The 5 sections are beginning with identify assets and prepare to attract business, moving to planning for the business investment you want, attract and assess business opportunities, a section on hosting and how to showcase your community, and lastly, supporting businesses within your community. There's also an additional section, which isn't on the screen, but we will cover in the presentation, to provide resources and assistance to help you in effectively communicating your investment attraction efforts. And with that, we'll move to the next slide. So as mentioned, the Business Attraction Toolkit, it was designed for those folks who support economic activity in communities and regions across BC. The toolkit has been designed to support communities to identify your economic assets, what's unique about your community or your region, and how can those assets support your investment attraction, investment readiness efforts. It will assist you in assessing your community's level of investment readiness, help you to develop economic development and investment attraction strategies. The toolkit will help to prepare you to attract business and investment and also evaluate those opportunities as they do begin to come through. There are a number of tools and resources to assist you in hosting familiarization tours with potential investors. There's also a section in there to support existing businesses within your community, and then, as I mentioned, the communication materials as well. What we do now is just briefly walk through each section of the toolkit to get a bit of a better sense and understanding as to what's included, what types of tools and resources are in each section, and to support your needs. So the first one, to identify assets and prepare to attract business, provides some foundation-level tools and resources and information to get you going, starting with the Community Business Readiness Assessment. So this questionnaire walks you through a number of themes, a number of areas that you should evaluate and consider when determining how investment your community is. At the end of the assessment, there is a bit of a tally where you're able to add up your score and then based upon that identify how ready your community is. And then the remainder of the toolkit really is focused around helping you to support any areas that you identify where improvement is needed. The second tool provided under this section of the toolkit is a section on understanding your community's assets. So what makes you unique? What are your competitive advantages? Why would an investor be interested in your community as compared to another community? So some information there on really honing in and focusing on what makes you special. The third would be understanding your community's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, also called a SWOT analysis. So this tool here provides not only a sample or an example of a SWOT analysis and what some of the key strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats may be for your community, but provides you with a downloadable template where you're able to just go in and fill out the information for your specific community, and then that document can be presented, it can be used, it can be changed and modified to suit your individual community needs. Next slide. The second section of the toolkit is focused around planning and focusing on the business investment you want. So does your community have a plan? What is the desired type of business that your community is looking for? What's best suited to your location? This section of the toolkit is really aimed to help you focus your efforts on attracting that type of investment that you're looking for. The first tool under this category is focused around preparing community and site selector profiles. Amy touched briefly on those at the beginning of the webinar today and emphasized the importance of those two pieces and also the importance of those being accessible, which leads into the second component under this section, focused on developing an economic development website. Site selectors can be looking for information on your community 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and in many instances, their first exploration of your community may not be by picking up the telephone and connecting with someone directly, but rather by surfing the internet and taking a look at your community's website to determine if your community has what it is that they're looking for. So having your community or site selector profiles or some more basic demographic information available on your municipal or economic development websites is really critical so that site selectors are able to access that information easily and at their convenience. The third component under this section is focused on preparing an economic development strategy for your community. So that really will take you through the steps and help you to focus your efforts and thoughts around what it is that your community wishes to do to support economic development. What type of economic development activity are you looking for? How will you generate that or attract that, and walk you through those steps. The last component here is building on that, really, to build an investment attraction strategy. Amy alluded that those two pieces often go hand in hand, and that specific tool there really takes your economic development strategy to the next level to focus on what your investment attraction plans will be. We skipped one. Yep, just one too many. Thanks, Darby. So the third section of the toolkit is attract and assess business opportunities. So how can you attract investment to your community, and how can you evaluate those opportunities when they do come through? So this section of the toolkit provides a number of tips, resources, and tools, as well as strategies to successfully position your community to attract business and assess investment opportunities. It contains, a number of innovative ideas and practical techniques that can be customized and applied to your community's specific circumstances. The first one there, the strategies and tactics for business attraction, just a number of practical, tips, how-tos, innovative little ideas and little techniques to really help you begin to assess and attract business opportunities. The second, the Community Economic Development Information Package, is focused around creating a comprehensive resource for your community that can be used for a variety of purposes. It can be used during a familiarization tour. It can be used as a as a frontline handout or resource to potential investors. If they do happen to visit your community unannounced, you have something ready to go to provide to them. It can be used if your community goes to a trade show or a conference or an event. It's just a really kind of handy, practical package to have available. The next is the investment evaluation and assessment. So this one takes you through a bit of a evaluation questionnaire to determine if you're considering a specific investment opportunity or a specific business opportunity. Breaks it down so that you can really work through it and understand if that's going to be the best fit for your community. If that meets with your economic development strategy, if it's consistent with your investment attraction plans, and helps you to evaluate in a systematic way those business and investment opportunities. And the fourth resource under this section is an investment attraction follow-up questionnaire. So in the end, if a potential investor doesn't decide to select your community, whether it be to go to another community or the investment opportunity or business opportunity fizzled out and is no longer applicable, it's always valuable to learn from those lessons and to understand how that location decision was reached. So this questionnaire is aimed to guide you through a conversation with a potential investor to help you learn from past experiences and improve in the future. This section of the toolkit is focused all around hosting. So what can you do to put your best foot forward and showcase your community? Are you ready to host a potential investor, whether it's a planned familiarization tour or an unexpected knock at the door? So it starts off by helping you to prepare a community information package that builds on the information package you would have prepared in the previous section and really hones it and focuses it down to meet the needs of the specific business opportunity or the specific investor. So is there a specific part of your community that they're looking for, a specific piece of land or a commercial building that they're interested in looking at? Are they specifically interested in one element of the workforce? So what is it that they're looking for, and how can you present that information within your community information package? The second piece here is how to prepare for a successful hosting visit. So there's a number of really important steps to take when planning to host prospective business investors. And this tool really will take you through those steps in a thoughtful and systematic manner. It takes you through the different tasks and planning activities and helps you to identify within your communities who's responsible for what. So who will ensure your community is fully prepared to host a successful familiarization tour. The third one is how to develop an itinerary for your familiarization tour. It's actually a downloadable template that you can edit, revise, and customize. You can put your community's logo on it, and you can use that to build an itinerary that will meet the needs of your investor. Not only does it do that, but it helps you to plan the day by really determining, again, what it is that investor is after. Is it a specific piece of land or a specific area? What is it that they wish to see or do during the tour? And then make sure that you plan around that, giving ample time for breaks and meetings and phone calls and anything else that may come up during the course of the tour. The last tool within this section is some information around business protocols and customs for hosting foreign investors. So it's important to research the business culture, the protocols and customs that may apply when hosting foreign investors, and this tool provides some helpful guidelines and information to assist you in doing just that. The last section of the toolkit is focused around supporting businesses within your community. So how do you support, grow, and develop your business community? This section of the toolkit is really built around helping you to strengthen your local economy by bringing new business to town and also retaining and developing existing businesses and fostering an environment of growth and expansion within your community and within your region. So it's a key component to any successful economic development or business attraction strategy. And the support that your community is able to provide to your local businesses really can make all the difference. So these tools and resources will aid you to provide customized and focused support to secure a new business operation within your community and to assist an existing business to grow and develop within your community. The first tool there is taking the next step. So you've brought the investor to town, you've hosted them, you've showed them what they needed to show, you've gone through follow-up questions, and now it's kind of time to start to close the deal. So what is it that your community can do to help the potential investor conclude their location decisions? That tool will provide you with some helpful information around that. The next tool, the Business Retention and Expansion section, is focusing on encouraging existing businesses to stay, grow, and develop within your community. It promotes business success and vitality through strengthening your connection with local business operators, and it provides valuable information and guidance, as well as best practices to support your community in developing a business retention and expansion program. The last one here is supporting small business. So small businesses are an integral component of any well-diversified local or regional economy and are often a focus of business attraction efforts. So this tool is focused on providing resources, links, and some really helpful information to enhance and develop your small business community. The information provided will assist you in directing small businesses to the available resources and programs and tools designed to support them in meaningful and key ways. The final section of the Business Attraction Toolkit, as I mentioned earlier, is focused around some communication tools to support your business attraction efforts. So how can you effectively communicate the benefit of economic development and investment attraction and highlight your success stories, highlight your achievements? This section takes a number of valuable tools and resources and helps you to effectively communicate with your residents, the media, investors, and your business community. It will equip you to be able to communicate proactively and regularly with your stakeholders in order to gain their support and help to build community consensus towards economic development and investment attraction. This section is rich with downloadable templates that can be used and customized. Again, you can stamp your community logo on there. You can edit it, revise it, and make it your own. So the first one here is the news release. This template, it's a great template. It contains a lot of information to walk you through the process of developing a news release, what should be included, what type of information is valuable, how long news releases should be, everything you kind of need to know to put together a well-thought-out news release you can find under that tool. The second one, event planning, is focused on helping you plan for any sort of milestone accomplishment, a project completion or a community engagement meeting, a business community roundtable session, a trade show, or a conference. Takes you through some really key steps and activities and planning exercises to make sure that whatever event you're planning, it's as successful as it possibly can be. The third are some helpful pointers around speaking notes. So there's often a need or an opportunity for a community spokesperson to speak publicly regarding the community's business attraction efforts. And this tool provides valuable information and guidance to assist you in developing well-thought-out, carefully planned speaking notes to assist your community spokesperson. The fourth are the question and answer materials, or Q&As. And this tool is really helpful to proactively be able to anticipate what types of questions may arise in regards to a particular topic, project, or initiative, and develop consistent responses that can be used by the community spokesperson to address the inquiry. So this tool describes effective Q&A materials and provides guidance on the type of information that should be included or addressed through your Q&A documents. And then the last is some information on social media tools. Communities are more and more starting to turn to social media tools such as Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, YouTube, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, and so on and so forth now to really share information not only on business attraction and investment readiness, but on community-led initiatives, on community activities or events or upcoming plans. And so this section of the toolkit provides just a little bit of information to help you understand what types of social media channels and vehicles are out there, what their primary purposes and target audiences are, and how they may be suitable and tailored to your specific business attraction or investment attraction plans. That concludes the presentation on the Business Attraction Toolkit. I've included the link there to the toolkit. I think it's also important to mention that we do have an email address for the toolkit. It's just simply toolkit@gov.bc.ca. So again, that's toolkit@gov.bc.ca. It is accessible from the toolkit's website. There's a Contact Us section. We'd absolutely love to hear your feedback, again, on what's working well, if we've missed anything, or if there's something that would be valuable to add. We'd also really appreciate the opportunity to hear about your experience in using the toolkit. So again, did it help you to prepare to host an investor? How did that tour go? What was your experience in completing the investment readiness questionnaire? Was that information helpful? Did it help you to identify gaps and then also find solutions to better prepare yourself for the future? We'd really love to hear your experience and would be happy to discuss anytime. We're always looking to continuously improve, and one section that we're working to build out right now is the Business Retention and Expansion Program. We heard through both the workshops that we delivered earlier this year, as well as through feedback channels on the toolkit, that's a section that's really important and really valuable for communities. And so we're working to enhance and really bolster that section. we are anticipating that we should be able to release the revised and enhanced business retention and expansion component of the toolkit later this month, and we'll be sure to send a communication out letting everyone know that it's live and ready to go. So with that, I will turn the presentation back to Amy.
Thank you. So I think that at this point we'll open up the floor if there are any questions or feedback that folks have at this point. Please go ahead. I think you can either,
you can use the feedback button that we spoke about just at the top of the presentation or the webinar. So you can just switch that from what it is now received to question, or if you wish, you can just type the question in by clicking on that Q&A button at the top of your screen, and you can type in your question there or comment. No.
Okay. If there's not questions at this point, then we can certainly move on, and hopefully there'll be some time at the end of the session for more questions.
There's just one question here. I'm just going to pull it out here because I can't quite read it all, but it's from Rick Braun. I may have missed it, but are you piloting this? So the Business Attraction Toolkit, no doubt.
Sure. So the Business Attraction Toolkit itself has been live since April of this year. The Enhanced Business Retention and Expansion Program, that will be live towards the end of this month, and both sections were created in close engagement with stakeholders and regional partners.
For the question, Rick. Any other questions at this point? Okay, as I said, there'll be another opportunity to chime in at the end of the webinar. So we'll move on to Jaylene Arnold at this point. Jaylene is the Economic Development and Tourism Officer for the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. Jaylene first joined the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality in 2006. She took a sabbatical in 2008 to work for the Fort Nelson First Nation, and then with industry for a short time before rejoining the municipality in 2009 in her current role. Jaylene has lived in Fort Nelson since 1994, relocating from Vancouver Island with her family, and later attending Vancouver Island University to complete her Bachelor of Arts in Criminology and returning to the North in 2006. In 2011, Jaylene enrolled in the Community Economic Development Program at Simon Fraser University, completing the certificate program in spring 2012. She is a standing member of the Economic Developers Association of BC and of the Community Economic Development Network. So with that, I'll turn the floor over to Jaylene, who will walk us through a case study.
Great. Thank you. So, hi, everybody. I hope not to bore you, but hopefully you can glean some interest from the experience of the Northern Rockies. So how we got to where we are now happened well before a toolkit, and it was sort of a result of a lot of hard work and creativity on the part of our CAO at the time, as well as the planning team and the small economic development staff of one that we had back then. So a little bit of context, because I often get the question, I've been to Nelson, or people relate Fort Nelson with Nelson, but Fort Nelson's actually the top 10% of the province. Let's see if I can go, oops, I'm going back. So there we are on the context. We are north of Fort St. John, the last city before the Yukon. We became the first single-tier government in BC in 2009 when we amalgamated the regional district with the town. So it combined the tax base as well as the governance structure. It really simplified the council meetings, for one, because it became a single council rather than dual. And it allowed us to capitalize on the larger tax base because most of the industrial activity was happening within the regional district area, so the impact was largely felt in the town boundaries. So basically, our major industries at that time were forestry, natural gas, and tourism. In 2007, tourism, basically the bottom fell out, and our two major forestry manufacturers closed. Thankfully for us at that time, natural gas was really improving and growing in the area. So currently, it's definitely natural gas and tourism as our main industries. So while there's really no town of Fort Nelson anymore, most people still geographically identify with us as Fort Nelson. That being said, Fort Nelson is the densely populated area in the Northern Rockies, and there's about 5,200 people in the 14 square kilometers that was Fort Nelson. Our main street is the Alaska Highway, which is Highway 97, the main transportation corridor to the Yukon and Alaska. And basically, that's the conduit for all of our tourism industry. So next, we found ourselves in a bit of a predicament in 2005, 2006. Basically, we were finding that we were outgrowing the available space that we had for expansion, both commercial, industrial, and residential. And sort of a history back in 1973 when the Agricultural Land Reserve was established. Fort Nelson's area, so the Northern Rockies, was dedicated mostly agricultural land with part of the Peace River District, which has a very, very strong agricultural base. Our region does not have a strong agricultural base, mostly due to climate, the fact that the land is not arable, it's swampy, it's shale, there's a lot of boreal forest. So there was literally no land left for expansion, and figuratively in that it was mostly zoned agricultural and was Crown land. So as part of our OCP work in 2005-2006, we realized this was glaringly obvious and began negotiations with the province with the Agricultural Land Commission to release lands for growth. So while they can be taken out of the ALR, they still need to be purchased. However, the first big step and the most lengthy process is that release. So in 2006, we also undertook a South Access route study, which at the time was looking at the feasibility around a dangerous goods route, basically because having the Alaska Highway is the main corridor and having dangerous goods basically traveling straight through town, it created an environment where there was potential for frequent closures, close proximity to residential areas and schools, recreational areas. So that was basically the motivation behind that study. What it also identified was that with the route, potential for a route, there was also potential for subdivision. So it was timely that the study was going on in 2006 because that was when the province experienced the most brisk land sales for the Horn River, Cordova, and Liard basins, and with the uptake in shale gas exploration. So I think to date the sales are well over $2 billion. They continue to sell, however, most of the land is spoken for. So to give you an idea as well, the basins are not, when we say they're in our backyard, they're within 100 kilometers of Fort Nelson, but Fort Nelson is definitely the closest service center to those basins. But they still reside within the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. So basically, in 2009 was the peak of exploration for natural gas in the and we saw ourselves poised to be the service sector, being that business activity was picking up. There was growing demand for land and commercial space, industrial space. the existing heavy industrial and light industrial space was pretty much spoken for. And then we received word that the land was released from the ALR, so we offered to, the Northern Rockies opted to offer to purchase a majority of the lands released with closest proximity to town from the province, so with 173 acres at $1.2 million. We finalized that sale in the spring of 2010, and we then budgeted for the basic greenfield development. So that was the planning and engineering, the subdivision plan. We contracted a planner out of Prince George to do that on our behalf. The clearing, grubbing, drainage, and ditching, and very preliminary road work. So that was a budget of $800,000. We had planned to do the entire lot, or the entire amount of land, and then subdivide it from there and service it accordingly. So basically, after that, we had all of the basics down. We had a preliminary agreement with BC Rail Properties to develop the subdivision. They had had some success initially with our heavy industrial area, and it was basically all filled, so there was no existing property there. So they saw an opportunity to develop the light industrial area closer to Fort Nelson. However, we know that they restructured and have since stepped back from being developers. So we were left with the decision to go ahead for a request for proposals. The work was done, and we crossed our fingers and hoped for the best. So we put out a request for proposals to build and finance the subdivision. We were fortunate at that time to receive one proposal. They had proposed two alternate streams. So one would be a development partnership, which would be basically taking on multiple partners, including the municipality, and proceeding with development, or to build finance. So basically, the developer would build the property, and we would finance it. What came out of it was the partnership. I see my arrow in my presentation is pointing at the wrong thing, but council resolved to go the partnership route. So we shortly thereafter developed a joint venture with three companies. So IDL Projects out of Prince George, Belvedere Place Development, and Colito Construction, which is a local Fort Nelson company. So we structured the agreement in such a way that the Northern Rockies is the 50% stakeholder in the joint venture, with the other three proponents holding the other 50%. Each of the venturers invested $2 million cash or in kind. So I guess a little bit of background on the three partners. They are developers and road builders and contractors for road building. So they had the in-kind resources to develop the land themselves without too much cash contribution. Northern Rockies, of course, had put in the cash contribution up front, so the $1.2 million purchase of the property, and then the $800,000 in the planning and engineering site prep. So that was the Northern Rockies contribution. The structure of the agreement basically says that it's managed by a board, so up to two members from each of the shareholders, with not to exceed 4 representatives. At this time, we have our CAO and the COO of IDL sit on the board. Makes it pretty streamlined. And basically, each of the proponents assume the same amount of risk. So the liability and risk is shared 50-50. There was a commitment that we proceed with phase 1 at the outset, which at that point was a small portion, and then to continue with phase 2 after we'd seen success in phase 1. So one of the things we saw at the outset was that there was a lot of innovation to be captured through having a private sector partner, and they identified that what we were seeing as phase 2 actually had better marketability than phase one. So we agreed at that point to undertake the development of both phase one and phase two and phase out the center section, which we're now calling, which at that point was phase three. Now we call it phase two. And then the net proceeds from all of the sales, less the marketing, because we have real estate agents that market the properties. So the net sales would be held in trust and then dispersed upon the majority agreement. So another role that the Northern Rockies took was to retain the title on the lots. So that exempts the lots from property taxes while they sit empty. The moment that the property changes title to a private, a tenant or when they're purchased, then of course they become taxable. And then the properties also are exempt from development fees and other cost charges. So that was at the time of subdivision and development and servicing. And then basically the agreement also details that each of the partners would contribute additional funds for the future phases. We also kept in mind that there are other commercial subdivisions and industrial subdivisions in the area that are privately held and are being marketed as well. And the council has taken a perspective that it's not our role to compete with small business or local business. So one of the principles in marketing the properties was that they be marketed at fair market value. So at this point, it's $165,000 per acre for light industrial, and $255 per acre for the commercial. We also were approached by Cushman Wakefield to market the properties, and at that point identified that the local real estate agencies would have a role to play as well, and that they often meet with investors that come up just for basically a blind orientation. So the three of those partners, Cushman Wakefield, Remax, Fort Nelson, Rolla Page, Fort Nelson, signed a joint marketing agreement, and they've taken a tripartite effort in marketing the properties. We developed, with the help of Northern Development Initiatives Trust, we developed an investment profile. So that's one of the tools that was identified earlier that is ready to present when an investor comes and we need something to put in their hot hands before they leave. It also gives those properties a web presence and the full details of their servicing and sizes and zoning and things like that. So that profile is featured on our Northern Rockies website, as well as on the Opportunities BC database and the Invest Northeast BC portal, which is an investment portal developed by Northern Development to feature investment opportunities throughout the Northeast. And then we have also highlighted the properties, obviously, when there's an investor that comes to do some site orientations, if we have inquiries, or when there's trade and investment reps. We've had, I think, 2 tours in Fort Nelson in the past. So when they come, those are the profiles that we would provide to them. And I guess in terms of just overall marketing, we took advantage of the activity in the area and the fact that the Horn River Basin is a term that many oil and gas companies can relate to. So when we coined the subdivision in the marketing material, we called it the Horn River Basin Light Industrial subdivision. So this is the opportunity. The zones that are colored in are the ones that have been developed and serviced, and the blue properties are what has sold. We haven't had as much uptake as we'd hoped, but we are seeing fairly low natural gas prices, which is, I think, for most investors a level of risk that they aren't necessarily willing to take at this point. They'd like to see a higher gas price to ensure that, the gas is flowing rather than just setting up the capital infrastructure and shutting in. So what was initially studied as the South Industrial route or the South Access route, it actually generated a lot of negativity in the community. The community saw it as a bypass route and felt that traffic would be diverted through there rather than going through Fort Nelson, taking advantage of the retail and service opportunities. So it was a real rebranding exercise on our part. Basically, moving away from the terminology, moving away from the intent that it be a diversion of traffic, but that the area around it be developed as light industrial and commercial, so that the traffic that would naturally be flowing through there is the traffic that would access those services, and not the coffee shops, not the gift shops, not the things that a highway traveler that's headed to Alaska or the Yukon necessarily would be accessing. I'm going to use my little pointer here. This area here is now being developed as a gateway commercial area. So basically, there's our very first Tim Hortons, and there's a Ministry of Transportation put in a fully functional traffic light and exit routes and things like that. This area here is the access to the Horn River, so it's well located for the gateway commercial development here. And then these are more of the light industrial activity down this way, which fits the planning of this whole area here is all light industrial as well. So at the time, the planning fit. It's evolved to continue to fit the community, and they've responded really well to it. Fort Nelson planned fairly well that way, so I'm happy about that. Some of the lessons learned. So from our perspective, the more planning you can do up front, the better. The planning we undertook, yes, it's legislated that your OCP be refreshed every 5 years or in a recurrent way. But had it not been for that, we would not have identified the need. And the subsequent studies, because of that and the opportunities that those brought forward for us, were invaluable. And then the planning around having the subdivision plan done early. You can always change things afterwards, but you need something in writing to be able to show in your RFP and show potential investors and communicate to your council what the opportunity is. The next lesson learned is get the lengthy processes out of the way early. So, if it means releasing land, if it means accessing financing, if it means seeking partners or developers, get those processes out of the way early, years in advance if you can. Look at all your opportunities. So, things have evolved to a point where they don't necessarily have to be all public sector or all private sector. Communities don't necessarily have to wait for a developer to step forward and be the one to take things on. In this, we're finding more and more that developers are not wanting to take the risk, especially in rural communities and small communities that are largely single industry. So those blends are becoming more common, and you can find that you can do more with less money. So the public funds that we put in were matched 1-to-1 by private funds, and it's come out well, and we can see growth definitely. The next lesson is be prepared to be flexible. So, our intent was to take small bites out of the project, and with the private partners that came forward, they wanted to a larger piece sooner, and that worked really well. It's an even share of what's developed and what hasn't. So, and the project is not always A to B to C to D. It's often an organic process, which is very much how we came upon a joint venture with 3 other companies. And that brings me on to the creativity of others. So take advantage of it. There's the partners that you bring on this is not likely their first project. So the experiences that they've found in other communities or the learnings they've had from colleagues or other, even competitors, it can it can be to your advantage. So ask as many questions as you can, and really, you know, encourage them to set the sky as the limit when it comes to finding a solution that works. And I think that's all I have. Yeah.
Okay. Great, Jaylene. Are you leading this part or me?
Yeah, I certainly can. So, yeah, thanks very much, Jaylene. So now we would like to switch it over and use our remaining time here for a bit of a discussion and any questions that you might have for our presenters or comments or ideas. So really opening up the lines, and actually I think we will literally open up the lines here in a second. So if hopefully we won't have any phones on hold and music playing at the time, but if you are doing other things, please mute your line. *6 is to mute your line. I will open up the line here.
The conference is no longer in lecture mode.
So if you do have a question, again, you've got two ways to pose it or comment again. You can use that feedback button in the top right-hand corner and raise your virtual hand, or you can type it in through the Q&A button, and those will queue up. So the floor is yours. I should change this over here. You were speaking, so I want you. We did put some discussion questions up here just to encourage discussion. So if there are any interested in addressing any of these questions, so what supports could assist you with being investment ready? Are there any ideas there?
Hey Darby, it's Rick here.
Hi Rick.
The supports, I guess, you know, I think it's going to be good to see how this toolkit's going to be, you said online at the end of the month, is that right? The end of September? Is that when it's going to be active?
Yeah, the toolkit itself is active right now. It's just the enhanced business retention and expansion component that'll be added and live towards the end of the month, but all of the other sections are up and available now.
Yeah, I thought they had been for a while, but I didn't catch that. But what's been the response?
Yeah, it's been really positive. We've I brought sort of one of our metrics sheets here. So as I mentioned, over the summer we had almost 1,000 visitors to the Business Attraction Toolkit, which I think is positive, especially over those summer months when we all have so much other stuff going on. Some of the more the top 5 downloadable tools or templates that have come forward so far. So the Community Assets Inventory is the #1 sort of downloadable tool right now. The SWOT table that I talked about, where you can download that and input your community's strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. That's our second most popular downloadable tool. The Business Readiness Assessment, or the Investment Readiness Assessment Checklist, so that questionnaire that you can walk through, is third. The Investment Attraction Follow-Up Questionnaire, to follow up with a prospective investor if their location decision doesn't end up being your community, that's the 4th. And then the Economic Development Information Package Checklist, which helps you to build a information package on your community that Jaylene spoke to there, being so valuable to be able to hand out and put in their hands. That's the 5th most downloaded tool. Yeah, we've got some good visitors from within the province, across Canada, and even internationally. We've had some interest from the U.S. and then from areas such as Hong Kong and the United Kingdom. We've had visitors come to the site from there as well. So a good response for sure.
And have you had much questions about the toolkit and that type of thing? Have you had any much feedback from communities on that mode?
Yeah, we have received some feedback, which has been great. Actually, in response to some questions that were brought forward on, a little bit more explanation on how do I use the toolkit? How do I get kind of an at-a-glance summary of what's in there, and what if I want to, print something in hard copy and be able to walk it into a meeting and show it to somebody or go through it? So in response to that piece of feedback, we developed a bit of a summary document, an overview of the toolkit contents. We sent that out in an email to stakeholders in early July, to a number of communities. We also will be posting that summary document up on the Business Attraction Toolkit website as well. It's just a really handy, kind of succinct resource that you can open up and print off and use it to kind of walk through the stages of business and investment attraction.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Rick.
Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, this is Greg Lay, Mayor of Kaslo, a small rural community with 1,000 people. I have visited the toolkit and found it quite helpful in terms of identifying a pathway to making our community more investment ready. Our issue is that trying to find the funding to assist with doing this. So just for a town of 1,000 people with a community forest, quite a tourist operation in relative terms, how much would it cost to hire somebody to go through the toolkit with a local person so we build capacity in the community to build our profile and get all these websites? We've got an airport here that's been abandoned basically by previous councils for the last 15 years. There's now an attempt to rejuvenate business activity up at that airport because it's got a fair amount of industrial land associated with the actual airport itself. So would $10,000 get you started down the road with a consultant knowledgeable on how to build capacity in the community for using the toolkit to its fullest, given that this is a rather small community?
Hi, Greg. It's Amy here, and I think it's a really good question, and it's certainly an interesting approach. And as Katie mentioned, the toolkit is intended, for a couple different purposes, either to do as you describe and kind of begin from square one and walk a community through all of the various stages of investment readiness, or to kind of focus on a particular stage and really dig in and focus on where the identified needs or priorities are. I don't really have a number for you for what that would cost. I'm assuming that you're talking about like hiring a consultant to assist with that type of work. Certainly provincial representatives, whether it's the regional manager for the Kaslo or other staff from the ministry could assist in doing some preliminary work and supporting you to use the tools, and we can certainly be in touch about that. But I don't really have I don't have a number in mind. It would really depend on a number of different variables.
Could I ask if you've been in touch with Columbia Basin Trust? Because in the trust area are a lot of small rural communities similar to our own, where if they were a train-the-trainer situation or something, or hold a workshop, because we all run on volunteers here largely, and they seem to be in a mood to finance initiatives of this nature. So have you talked to Columbia Basin Trust at all?
Yeah, we were working, we connected with each one of the regional trusts in developing the online toolkit. We also connected with the trusts in conjunction with the Economic Development Essentials workshops that we delivered. Certainly I can't really speak to whether they'd be able to provide any any financial assistance to walk through a specific component of the toolkit, but they are certainly aware of the initiative and of the work being done to help communities work through those various stages of business and investment attraction.
Hi, it's Sarah Fraser.
Go ahead, Sarah. I was just about to note you'd raised your virtual hand, so please go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, Marilyn. Sarah Fraser with the ministry here, and good to hear your voice.
Hello, Sarah.
You've got an excellent new CAO who is very experienced in economic development, who just joined you recently. So I would go to him first. And the other thing is, I can get Diana Brooks, our regional manager, to give you a call. And she's certainly been working with the Columbia Basin Trust, and they're trying to build their economic development arm. So that's a really good point you raised, and I think they would have some interest as well. So I can get Diana to touch base with you and with Neil and give you some assistance there.
I appreciate that, and UBCM is coming up here in a couple of weeks, so everything is sort of focused on things that we have to do at UBCM to determine various things for Castle. But I appreciate that. Diana has been good to us. It's trying to get this into a workshop format of some kind, just to give people a little bit of a sense of purpose and direction. That going to the website is one thing, but if 5 different people go to the website, they usually come away with it with 5 different ideas. But anyway, and so thank you, Sarah.
You're very welcome, and see you at UBCM.
You got her.
Okay.
Sarah, thanks, Marilyn, as well. Yes, indeed, we will be at UBCM, and we will have a booth there at the trade show, so please also come by and see us there as well. Are there any questions, any more questions or comments from anyone in the audience?
This is Rhonda Cage in Prince George.
Hi, Rhonda.
Hi. I'm relatively new to the ministry, and I've been trying to absorb as much information. I was one of the ones who identified myself as a beginner. So I appreciate all of the tools and the information that is being provided just from a getting myself up to speed perspective. But when I go out, I've been out to my communities and speaking with the communities that I'm assisting, and the majority of them are under 5,000 people. And over, the challenge keeps coming up. How do these small communities utilize the tools? I mean, they can take the tools to a certain point, but then, they just don't have the capital or the ability to take it to the next step and invest in being ready. So my question is, internally, policy or tools, is there something, is there another phase that is a possibility to look at? How do we go from working with local communities to regional implementation of these tools? So, is there a way of taking that, readiness of 5,000 people communities to, 15,000 person or more, actually, because they usually have much bigger populations in the districts, regional districts, to implement and be investment ready?
Hi, Rhonda. It's Amy. So building on the, the Economic Development Essentials for Local Leaders workshops that we did earlier in 2013, that was another really, clear need that was identified to us. Is all of this information is well and good, and the tools look great, but how do we actually use them in small communities where there is not an economic development function? And it's a really valid need and a valid movement, and it is something that we're looking to develop workshops around and working to expand the support for those small rural communities. As I say, those that don't have an established economic development function, responsibility for the work that we're talking about.
So I guess to follow up on that question, I figured that would be the answer.
Yeah.
but as somebody out in the region, it would be really useful for me if there was some information that I could gather for you to assist in that. If you could provide me some guidance, I just want to throw that out there.
Okay, we'll be coming to you, Rhonda. Don't worry. We're in early stages right now, but we'll certainly be relying on input from regional staff to inform development of those workshops and tools.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Rhonda. And I think we're just about there. Let me just have a quick peek here. Just a couple minutes left. Are there any urgent questions remaining?
Well, it's Greg here again. I just want to thank you guys for doing this because it does create the opportunity for those of us that are a long way from the center of power down there to be informed and to come up with action plans. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Greg. We're certainly very pleased to be here. And some of those resources that we did speak to today are listed here, so those hyperlinks won't work on your screen, but they will work in the handout that I did provide in that handout section there. So again, I'd encourage you to print that out.
You got it.
And as well, here's contact information for our presenters today who have kindly made themselves available for any questions. So if you do have additional questions, please look there. And just before I do say thank you, I would like to note I will be sending out a survey following this. So we really do appreciate the feedback that you do provide on these webinars so that we can ensure that they are meeting your needs and are as successful as they can be. So please do fill that in. And with that, I'd like to thank each of our presenters. Jaylene, thanks very much for joining us today and your certainly very engaging presentation there.